In one Cambodian village, a family builds a small hut beside their house so their teenage daughter can choose her own husband. A short drive from the capital, other families raise their children in the middle of a graveyard, sleeping between the tombs. There is a town where people fry spiders the size of your hand and sell them as snacks. Women here hold up more than a third of the whole economy, and once a year, the entire nation grows a year older on the very same day. This is Cambodia, not the version tourists are sold, the real one. And here is the strange part. Almost everything you are about to see was shaped by the same wound. One of the darkest any country has ever survived. Yet, the people you will meet are among the warmest on earth. Let me show you the country most people cannot even place on a map. Cambodia sits in mainland Southeast Asia, wrapped by Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, and the Gulf of Thailand. It covers about 69,000 square miles, roughly the size of Oklahoma. Around 17.5 million people live here, and about 2.5 million of them fill the capital, Phnom Penh. The language is Khmer, one of the oldest written languages in the region. And faith is not a side note here. It is the frame around everything. Theravada Buddhism is written into the constitution as the state religion, and roughly 97 out of every 100 Cambodians are Buddhist. Almost every custom in this video traces back to that one fact. Hold on to that number, 97%. It explains the gentleness you are about to see, again and again. One quick thing before we go deeper. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. It is always something to see how far Cambodia's story travels. But numbers tell you nothing about how tender and how strange real life here can be. It starts with how a young woman finds a husband. In the highlands of Ratanakiri, among the Kroon people, a girl reaching her teenage years is given something most cultures would never allow. Her family builds her a small hut of her own, just beside the family home. At night, she can invite a young man she is interested in to sit, talk, and get to know him. And the choice, the entire choice, belongs to her. Now sit with why this exists. In a part of the world where arranged marriage was long the norm, this tradition hands the decision to the young woman herself. She can meet one suitor, decide he is not right, and meet another, with no shame attached. The elders saw it as a way to prevent unhappy marriages before they began. A quietly progressive idea, centuries ahead of its time. Think for a moment about how radical that is. In much of the world, and for much of history, a young woman's marriage was decided for her. By parents, by property, by the needs of two families. Here, in a remote corner of the highlands, the opposite quietly took root. The hut was not about romance for its own sake. It was a system built by a community to make sure a woman entered marriage by choice rather than by pressure. And a marriage begun in choice, the elders believed, was far less likely to end in misery. It is fading now. Younger Kroong are moving towards city life, and the government has discouraged the custom. So what you are looking at is a piece of the world that may not exist in another generation. A freedom invented in the forest, slowly disappearing as the modern world arrives. If you think this video deserves more attention, tap the hype button below. Each hype only lasts a few seconds, but it helps this reach a wider audience. We would be very grateful. A woman's power in Cambodia, though, does not end at the edge of a village. It runs straight through the country's economy. Here is a fact that quietly rearranges how you picture this place. In Cambodia's garment factories, the industry that stitches clothes sold across America and Europe, women make up more than 80% of the workforce. And that single industry drives more than a third of the entire national economy. Many of these women are migrants from the countryside, sending roughly 40% of every paycheck back home to family. Sit with what that 40% means. It is not spare change. It is a daughter feeding a village, a farm kept alive from a factory floor hundreds of miles away, a family standing because she stayed on her feet through a long shift. When you pull on a shirt that says "Made in Cambodia," there is a decent chance it passed through her hands first. So when you picture who carries Cambodia, do not picture a stereotype. Picture her. Their traditions carry the same weight. A traditional Khmer wedding can run for 3 days and 3 nights. The number 3 is not random. It echoes the 3 jewels of Buddhism: the Buddha, his teachings, and the community of monks. One of the most tender moments is the knot tying ceremony, when family members wrap red string around the wrists of the bride and groom, each thread a wish for unity, protection, and a love that lasts. Curious about Cambodian dating and marriage customs like these? Type the number 3 in the comments and we will go deeper in a future video. And to see how ordinary Cambodians really live, you only have to step onto the sidewalk, where an entire city spills into the street. In Phnom Penh, the sidewalk is a world of its own. Food stalls, motorbike repairs, children playing, people sleeping, all of it packed into a few feet of pavement. You can sit down to dinner while motorbikes slide past inches from your back. Some diners tilt their heads to let a passing handlebar clear their hair. At the center of it sits a small blue plastic stool. Locals will tell you that sitting on one of those stools, sharing a bowl of noodles with strangers, is one of the most honest ways to touch Khmer culture. And it costs almost nothing. Then there is the market, where nothing has a fixed price. The first number is never the last one. Travel guides here give the same advice. Offer back about half of what is asked, then work from there. Refusing to haggle can even come across as a little dull. The seller feigns shock. You smile, they smile, and a deal is struck somewhere in the middle. But there is an unwritten line. Locals avoid bargaining below about 1,000 real, roughly $0.25, because for the vendor, that quarter is a day's living, not a game. That is the rhythm of it, the noise, the dust, the closeness, the very things Western cities have quietly engineered out of existence. Follow that chaos down to the water, and the streets themselves begin to float. Tonlé Sap is the largest freshwater lake in Southeast Asia and it breathes. In the dry season, it covers about 960 square miles. Then the monsoon comes and the lake swells past 6,000 square miles, deep enough in places to swallow a 2-story house. The people who live on it float with it. Whole communities sit on the water, floating homes, floating schools, floating markets, floating clinics, even a floating police station. When the water rises, the village rises with it. And this is not just scenery. The lake gives Cambodia around 1.25 million tons of fish a year, more than 60% of all the protein the country eats. Think about that ratio. For most of this nation, the difference between a full plate and an empty one is measured by whether this single lake breathes in and out on schedule. When the monsoon is generous, the country eats. When it falters, millions feel it. So the floating villages are not a curiosity. They are people living as close as possible to the thing that feeds them. Life here does not fight the water, it moves to the water's rhythm. The lake feeds the nation. But some of what ends up on a Cambodian plate can stop a Western traveler cold. In the market town of Skuon, nicknamed Spiderville, vendors deep-fry tarantulas the size of your palm until they turn crisp, then sell them by the tray. Locals call them a ping. Tourists arrive just to try one. But ask why anyone started eating spiders, and the answer stops being funny. During the Khmer Rouge years, from 1975 to 1979, food ran out and famine spread. People dug the tarantulas out of the ground because there was nothing else. What began as survival became habit, and habit became a local delicacy. The plate remembers the hunger. The fields carry the same story. Rice field rats are trapped by the tens of thousands and sold, grilled on skewers along Highway 5 for as little as $0.25 each. They are prized as clean meat, free-range and organic, said to taste a little like pork. Most are exported to Vietnam. And alongside them sit crickets, scorpions, and ants, once eaten out of need, now sold as street snacks and tourist dares. And this is the part worth slowing down for. What looks to a visitor like a dare or a gross-out clip for the internet is to a Cambodian something closer to heritage. A generation went hungry, found protein where they could, and passed the taste down to children who never knew the famine that started it. The crunch of a fried spider is, in a strange way, the sound of a country that refused to starve. None of this is strange to the people eating it. It is memory turned into a meal. That same desperation left another mark, one you notice the moment you try to pay for anything. In Cambodia, you carry 2 currencies at once. Anything over about $10 or $20 is usually paid in US dollars. Anything smaller is paid in Cambodian riel. The ATM hands you dollars, the change comes back in riel. And the reason reaches straight back into that dark. The Khmer Rouge did something almost no regime in history has done. They abolished money entirely in 1975. When the riel returned in 1980, no one fully trusted it. Then, in the early 90s, a United Nations mission arrived with 22,000 staff spending dollars, and the dollar moved in and stayed. Today, the government is gently unwinding it, nudging small payments back toward the riel, even launching an app so tourists can pay in local currency. A country rebuilding its own money, one small purchase at a time. Whatever currency you hold, you will need it in the seat of a tuk-tuk. The tuk-tuk is everywhere in Cambodia, at every hour. And many drivers are far more than drivers. They will point you to a clean place to eat, tell you the history of a temple and the gossip of a street, and reshape the whole day around what you want to see. Modern ones run through ride-hailing apps in Phnom Penh and Siem Reap now. The old and the new moving side by side, exactly like the country itself. Then there are the traffic lights. There are very few of them, and many people treat the ones that exist as decoration, something that only makes the road look nicer. Traffic here runs on instinct and quiet yielding. And somehow it works. Chaotic, yes. Aggressive, almost never. It moves the way the people do, patient and remarkably gentle. But there is one place where no one bargains and everyone falls silent. Angkor Wat is the largest religious monument on Earth. It spreads across more than 400 acres, raised in the 12th century under King Suryavarman II. Standing before it, you understand why an entire civilization organized itself around this one place. And here is something no other nation on the planet can claim. Cambodia is the only country in the world that puts a building on its flag, and that building is Angkor Wat, a temple at the center of a nation's own image of itself. It began as a Hindu temple to Vishnu, then became a Buddhist site, but the old gods were never destroyed. Hindu and Buddhist images still share the same stone walls, a rare case of one faith making room for another instead of erasing it. In a century that has watched so many holy places torn down in the name of the next belief, Angkor did the opposite. It added a layer and let the old ones stand. That instinct to hold two things at once rather than destroy one of them tells you something about this country long before you meet its people. If a place like this leaves you quiet, consider subscribing. There is far more of this world to see. And just a short drive from that sacred grandeur, some Cambodians make their home in the most unexpected place of all. On the edge of Phnom Penh sits a cemetery called Smor San. Around 130 families have built stilt houses and metal shacks in the gaps between the brightly painted tombs. In this graveyard, the living outnumber the dead. And life carries on. Children play around the headstones. Adults cook, wash clothes, and talk between the graves as if it were any other neighborhood. Some families even earn a living tending the tombs they live beside. And here is the part that reframes it. To an outsider, a home among graves looks like the edge of despair. But in a Buddhist country, the line between the living and the dead is not the wall it is in the West. The ancestors are not gone. They are neighbors of a kind. Families here are not haunted by the tombs around them. They tend them. This is not a story about one strange cemetery. More than 25,000 families live in the poor settlements ringing the capital, people the city's fast growth has quietly left behind. When there is nowhere else, you make a home wherever the ground is, and you make peace with whoever rests beneath it. To understand why hardship like this can sit so quietly beside so much warmth, you have to go back to the darkest of all. Between 1975 and 1979, more than 2 million Cambodians died under the Khmer Rouge. It was one of the heaviest human losses of the 20th century, and it happened within living memory. Nearly every family in this country carries an empty chair from those years. Now look at Cambodia today. The median age here is just 27, which means something quiet and enormous at once. Almost everyone you pass on the street is the child or grandchild of a survivor. A whole nation rebuilt from those who lived. In 2025, UNESCO placed the country's memorial sites on its World Heritage List, calling them places that turned from centers of repression into places of reconciliation and reflection. That phrase matters. A nation could have buried these places or turned them into monuments of anger. Cambodia chose instead to keep them open as classrooms for its own young people, most of whom were born long after and who learned the history from parents who lived it. And suddenly the whole video clicks into place. The spider on the plate, born from a famine. The dollars in your change, born from a currency erased. The gentleness of a tuk-tuk driver, in a country that had every reason to grow hard. All of it grew from the same soil. A country that lost almost everything and chose warmth anyway. That warmth is not forgetting. It is the bravest kind of remembering. So let me ask you something, and I mean it honestly. Does surviving the unthinkable make a people kinder? Or is that gentleness something older than any tragedy? Tell us what you think in the comments. From that same resilient soil comes a flavor chased by the best kitchens on earth. Kampot pepper was the first Cambodian product ever granted a protected geographical status by the European Union, the same rare label that guards Champagne and Parmigiano Reggiano. Grown since the days of the Khmer Empire, it carries notes of mint, citrus, and eucalyptus, and top chefs hunt it down for a single dish. Kampot pepper crab. But the pepper is only the doorway. Khmer food is often called the oldest cuisine in Southeast Asia, and it cooks with fire, fermentation, foraging, and flowers. Real flowers. Banana blossom goes into salads and sour soups. The national breakfast, nam ban chok, arrives buried under fresh herbs, wild leaves, and edible blooms. At its heart is krowung, a fragrant paste of lemongrass, kaffir lime, and galangal. Add a bitter local leaf called slok nor, and you get the taste that sets Cambodia apart from every neighbor it is so often confused with. And that confusion is the quiet injustice here. Cambodian food sits between two of the most famous cuisines on earth, and it gets mistaken for both, credited for neither. Yet it may be older than either, and in some ways gentler, less about heat, more about the balance of sour, bitter, and fresh. A cuisine this old, this alive, and the world has barely heard its name. After the sun sets over those pepper fields, the sea itself begins to glow. Off the island of Koh Rong, the water lights up at night. Bioluminescent plankton drift near the shore, and when you move your hand through the dark water, it sparkles like a sky full of stars fell into the sea. It works best on a moonless night, far from any light. Swim through it, and every stroke scatters cold blue fire around your arms. It is visible year-round, and locals run night tours out into the glow, the kind of thing travelers say they will never forget. One honest note, the plankton are harmless, but brushing against them can leave a faint itch. A small price for swimming through starlight. Time itself works differently here, starting with how old everyone thinks they are. Most Cambodians do not celebrate birthdays. Instead, by tradition, the entire country grows a year older on the same day, at Khmer New Year. This comes from an old East Asian way of counting age. A newborn is already 1 year old at birth, and everyone gains another year at the new year rather than on their own birthday. The gap with the Western count can reach 2 full years, so a Cambodian born the same year as you would quietly consider themselves older, and a whole nation would agree on the exact day it happened. That new year, called Chol Nam Tame, runs across the middle of April. Water fights fill the streets. Families carry offerings to their ancestors and gifts to the temples. It is Buddhist devotion and pure joy poured into the same 3 days, marking the end of the dry season. And the biggest celebration of all is timed to a river that flows backwards. The Tonlé Sap is the only river on Earth that reverses its direction with the seasons. Cambodia's largest festival, Bon Om Tuk, is timed to the exact moment the water turns and flows the other way. An entire nation celebrating a river that changes its mind. But Cambodia is not only honoring old rhythms, it is building new ones. Back in 2020, it launched a blockchain payment system called Bakong, one of the earliest of its kind in the world. Today it counts around 10 million digital wallets in a country of 17 million people. Remember, this is the nation whose money was once erased completely. Now it is paying by phone. And the ground is moving. In 2025, Cambodia opened the $2 billion Techo International Airport, replacing a runway that had served the capital for nearly 70 years. The old airport had one runway. The new one has 3, with room to grow toward 50 million passengers a year by 2050. For a country often treated as a stopover, it is a statement. Cambodia intends to be a destination. In 2026, it broke ground on a new stretch of the Funan Techo Canal, a 180-mile waterway meant to carry the country's goods from Phnom Penh all the way to the sea, cutting its dependence on other nations' ports. Some worry about the families and the farmland in its path, and those concerns are real and worth hearing. But the ambition behind it is unmistakable. Because Cambodia has drawn a line for itself: upper middle income by 2030, high income by 2050. And the engine driving it is that young population, the children of survivors, building the country their grandparents were nearly denied. If this changed how you see Cambodia even a little, a like and a subscribe genuinely help us keep telling stories like this one. Thank you. Think about what you have just seen. A girl who chooses her own husband. A whole nation that ages on a single day. A river that flows backwards. And a people who rebuilt their money from nothing. For a moment, it all looks like a list of things that could not possibly be true. But underneath every one of them is the same quiet fact. This warmth was built on top of one of the deepest losses any country has ever known. The things you call normal are only choices made by people who never lived what Cambodia lived. And this country, starting again from almost nothing, decided to meet the world with a smile and build a future anyway. That is not a place to pity. It is a place to admire.